Hi everyone, today we're going to be taking a look and I'm going to be personally completing this political compass test. So you can go to politicalcompass.org and then click the button take the test. Now I've already done the first page and then I realized I wasn't recording, and so I've already filled in some of these bubbles, but I'm going to go through this all with you. This is the US presidential candidates 2020. So you can see here, I think that everyone should be a bit more sort of libertarian and more left, especially more left. I mean, Warren's still in the right quadrant. I mean, you could say, US politics is quite to the right, but in terms of where I personally am, I think I'm aligned with some of these candidates, whereas in terms of policy, whereas actually I'm on a completely different side of the political spectrum to that person. So let's get going with this. First page is foreign policy, foreign issues, military intervention, country, nationalism, all that sort of stuff. So let's get going. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interest of transnational corporations. I put strongly agree because I just think, it's pretty clear it should really serve humanity rather than multi and transnational corporations. So I put strongly agree with that. I think that's pretty obvious. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong, and I said definitely not. I mean, if my country was doing something wrong, I would, assuming there wasn't free speech issues, or there was not heavy crackdowns on that, then strongly disagree. Of course, you don't just support countries even just for the sake because they're your country. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. I struggled on this one a bit. I said disagree because, I mean, it's not really foolish to be proud of it. Yes, no, you don't really necessarily choose, or you can't like change your country, but I think you should be proud of it because it's your nationality, it's where you grew up. Sorry about that. So I think I would say disagree with that, but not really strongly disagree because I can see where the question is sort of coming from. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Definitely not. Strongly disagree with that. That's just obviously racist. And obviously untrue. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I said disagree because there can be. I'm actually going to change that to strongly disagree because obviously there's uh, you could say, well, I'm not going to spoil where I am, but you can probably tell that you could say that you know I'm not really sure how to put this, but in terms of U.S. politics, the enemy within a specific party, and then their enemy is the other party. So it's not necessarily true. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Nope, in my opinion, never justified. So I would strongly disagree. That opens up a world of sort of black holes, of rabbit holes, if you know what I mean. There's now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I mean, I wasn't really sure what this sort of meant. I guess you could be referring to, fake news, but I think that, people should be allowed to post whatever they want. So I said agrees because I think it's probably true, but I don't think there should be much action because then you've got a lot of slippery slopes in terms of censorship. So next page. Alright, page 2 of 6, economic issues. Now the economy, we're taking attitudes here, not the FTSE index, so that's fine. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I said yes, so I think that, or I do say yes, because I think that people are ultimately divided by class more than by nationality, in terms of the 99% movement, Occupy Wall Street, etc. And there is still, divisions by nationality in terms of many parts of the world, but I think just the level of division in class, I think, is probably more than by nationality. But, I'm probably not the best person to be judging that, so strongly agree with that. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Obviously not. Unemployment means people don't have jobs, and that's one of the most important things that there can be. unless you could say, inflation's getting out of control, but you could say the same thing about unemployment right now in the US. So, in controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Strongly disagree with that. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Of course they do. Otherwise, they've got absolutely no incentive to do so. So, strongly agree with that. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. This one's interesting because from each according to his ability to each according to his need is sort of outlines of communism, right? So I would say that fundamentally you could argue it's a good idea. I'm still not exactly sure because I think that if you do, try harder and you are more successful, you probably should have more, right? Not to the degree it is in the US right now. I guess you could say fundamentally it's probably a good idea. In practice, it doesn't work, but I'm gonna put agree with that. The freer the market, the freer the people. Definitely not. That's not necessarily true. Just because there's a free market doesn't mean there's free people. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Definitely, I think water should be a human right and should be provided free of charge by the government, no cost, all over the world. So I would say agree. And just because we've got Flint and those sort of things, definitely it's a sad reflection. But I think if people want to buy it as a bottled, branded consumer product, I don't think there should be laws against it. So I'm gonna put agree with that overall. Land should not be a commodity to be bought and sold. No, it should be allowed to be bought and sold. I think that that's just basic, basic sort of. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, unless you're going way off the deep end in terms of the ultra communist left. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to society. Definitely, I think that that's definitely sometimes uh, sometimes something that happens. Moving on, protectionism. Protectionism sometimes necessary in trade. Yes, I think it is sometimes necessary. Um, so I would say agree with that. Uh, I wouldn't sort of openly encourage the practice of protectionism, but it is definitely sometimes necessary in order to, in order for it to be okay. So that's if you're sort of much more sort of nationalistic, you might put strongly agree with that. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit of its shareholders. Definitely not. That's just obviously wrong. I mean, it should be there to help people, not just to the ultra rich. Strongly disagree with that. The rich are too highly taxed. In the US, definitely not. Maybe in other countries, maybe not. I'm not really exactly sure. Overall, the rich are too highly taxed, I don't think is a correct statement, in my opinion. Those, oh gosh, those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care, and definitely not. I mean, that's pretty much like free market healthcare there, and I think everyone should have the access to the highest possible standard of medical care, and that's pretty much it. Governments should penalise businesses that mislead the public. Definitely yes. I mean, that's just, if they do something wrong, they should be punished. I think that's pretty obvious. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. Definitely. So I think that's pretty obvious as well. Next page. Bum. Alright, social issues, social values. Uh, Abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. No, I think that women should have the right to have control over their own bodies. All authority should be questioned. Definitely. I mean, you shouldn't just place all of your hopes in one person or one thing. That's definitely not. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, definitely not either. I mean, all authority should be questioned. Sorry, I thought that was a double negative there, so I was just making sure I answered the correct way. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Um, I don't think this is right. I mean, I think that, if you murder someone, you should not be murdered. I think that doesn't make sense. There was a famous quote, I forget who it was from. I think it was from Gandhi. I think an eye for an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. So definitely disagree with that one. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theatres or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Theatres or museums. I don't think they should be expected, honestly, but I could see an argument in terms of the arts. Yeah. That one's interesting. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. This one's interesting. I think kids, they should go to school. Uh, Schools should not make it compulsory. So I I think I agree with that. I think kids, they shouldn't be forcibly removed from their houses to go to school. I think they should have the ability to say I'm not going to go to school. So agree with that one. All people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Strongly disagree. That's just pretty much racism right there and then. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. No, I think I would strongly disagree with that one. It is natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Yeah, it's natural for them to keep some secrets from their parents. I think that's pretty obvious uh, as of this point. Alright, next question here. Sorry about that. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree. I think people should have the right to possess marijuana. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. I don't think that should be the prime function of schooling. I think it should be in terms of other areas. People with, oh gosh, people with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. No, that's pretty much bottom line, top line freedom there. So that's pretty much that. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. That's interesting. I think I would disagree with that. I think children don't need to learn to accept that. There are no savage and civilized people, there are only different cultures. I would agree with that. I think that's pretty fair to say there are only different cultures. I think that too. I mean, you do have some people who are savage, but I think that word is overused. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. I'm not sure about this one. I think overall I would disagree because I think maybe they could have like a mental disability. I think that maybe the government might overestimate the amount of people who are able to work, but yeah, that one's interesting. I think I might change that to agree. I mean, if you're like refusing, if you're just sitting with your butt at home, maybe you should not receive society's support. So, yeah, I'm not really fussed either way on that. I'm not really sure about that. When you're troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I mean, yeah, I guess that makes sense. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Strongly disagree there. Definitely they can be integrated in terms of the what's good for the most successful corporations, it's always ultimately good for all of us. Strongly disagree. Definitely not. I mean, that's just obvious in terms of, the climate and everything, and then in terms of economics as well. No broadcasting institution should receive public funding. I think they probably should receive public funding. That's interesting. I'm gonna say agree. I'm not really sure about that one. Next page. Next page. Alright, wider society. So I think this is again some more questions here. Alright, our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. Um, I mean, it hasn't really impacted me, but I can see how it can impact others. Um, I'm gonna say I agree with that statement. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. I mean, it avoids argument, but then, that's pretty much authoritarianism. So I don't like the idea of a one-party state, even if it is for my own, my own preference, because, we need to hold them accountable as well. But I guess that is an advantage, but I just disagree with that so much. I need to but disagree with that. Although the electronic age makes surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Definitely not. There was a bill that came very close to passing the Senate that would mean the government has unlimited power to look through your internet search history. So definitely disagree with that one. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Nah, I think that it should I think the maximum allowance would be for a lifetime sentence in prison. Uh, so even for the most egregious repeat murderers, I think that because there is still a chance you get the wrong person, and in that case, uh, that's that's uh, that's pretty much a crime by the state. So definitely not. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. No, you've got entrepreneurism, many other things like that. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything at all shouldn't be considered art at all. I think it should be considered art. I mean, I'm not really an art person myself, but I think I would have to disagree with that. Punishment more important than rehabilitation. Strongly disagree. I think rehabilitation. I think there should be a good mix, but I think rehabilitation should be, more. It is a waste of time to try and rehabilitate some criminals. Well, yeah, it is a waste of time for some, but I think maybe the government and the state thinks it's a waste of time for more people than it actually is. So I'm gonna say disagree with that. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Well, they do create more jobs, but I don't think anyone should be considered more important. So I'm going to say disagree. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Strongly disagree for obvious reasons. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. I'm not really sure what that means, so I'm going to say, well, I haven't really heard about that happening, so I'm going to say disagree. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Strongly disagree. You don't need to make peace with no establishment. Next page. Let's see. Okay, religion propositions. Astrology accurately explains many things. It doesn't. In my opinion, it just doesn't. You cannot be moral without being religious. I think that you can be not religious and moral, so you cannot. It's sort of a double negative here. You cannot be moral, so it's impossible to be moral if you're not religious. Strongly disagree with that. Of course, that's pretty much it. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. No, social security is definitely needed. Charity doesn't go far enough. Some people are naturally unlucky. Uh, yeah, definitely. I mean, some people are naturally unlucky. Strongly agree with that. Is important that my child's school instills religious values? Definitely not. I think. Sorry, I'm busy right now. I think that that's definitely not the case right now. Alright, next page. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Um, Disagree with that. I mean, you've got, workers who do this sort of stuff. A same sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. So they should not be excluded. Definitely. I think they should be allowed to um, adopt a child. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. Yeah, it should be legal because that's pretty much freedom. So I'm gonna say strongly agree with that. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree with that. No one can feel naturally homosexual. No, definitely not. I don't think that's correct. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I'm not really sure because, yes, openness about it has gone too far. I haven't really seen that, so I'm going to say disagree with that. Alright, now let's see where you stand. Okay, this is going to be very interesting to see where I am. So you can see here, this is all the different people. Thatcher, you know, uh, pretty right wing, um, quite sort of more authoritarian. Hitler, obviously, you know, sort of center on the left right, but extremely authoritarian and fascist. Stalin is left authoritarian. Gandhi uh, sort of democratic socialism, libertarian socialism there, and then Friedman here, right wing, slightly libertarian there. All right, let's see. U.S. neoconservatives, high military, neoliberals. Um, all right, here we go. Okay, my economic left-right is 6.13 to the left. My social libertarian authoritarian 6.51. Now I did actually, let's see if we can get this out. I did also take a look at, let's see how this can work. I did also do this a little bit ago and I got, I believe, the exact same social libertarian authoritarian, but my left right was 8.0. So there you go. So yeah, now you know where I stand. 6.13 to the left, 6.51 libertarian. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you're, if you'd like, you can pop your results down in the comment section below. This may have come as a surprise to some of you, maybe not to others. I tried not to make my bias seep into my videos. I can't promise that always, but yeah, that's it for today's video, guys. So 6.13, 6.51. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Good night.